what's behind this sudden rise in so-called ghost ships from North Korea?
Imagine stumbling upon 12 massive ships just sitting on a beach, forgotten by time. Or finding a yellow submarine rusting away in New York City. These aren't movie sets, they're real abandoned vessels with stories so incredible you won't believe they actually happened. Number 7 will absolutely blow your mind. Concrete mystery of Russia. Let's start with something that shouldn't exist. Near Russia's Caspian Sea sits a ship that looks alien. A bizarre hybrid of concrete and metal slowly crumbling for decades. Nobody knows what this ship was actually used for. Experts think it might have been a tanker based on its size, but the concrete construction suggests military purposes. During wartime, when steel was precious, some countries built concrete ships. But this Russian giant is different. The eerie part? It's completely unguarded. Anyone can climb aboard and explore its flooded decks. Urban explorers describe deteriorating concrete corridors where steel mesh pokes through like broken bones. Whatever secrets this ship holds are slowly sinking into Russian mud. Jerry's Yellow Submarine Dream. You know the Beatles song Yellow Submarine? There's actually a real yellow submarine rotting in New York City. And its story is both heartbreaking and hilarious. Meet Jerry Bianco, a man with a dream so big it literally sank before swimming. In 1967, this determined guy decided to build a submarine by himself in Brooklyn. Not just any submarine, a 45-foot monster designed to salvage treasure from the famous Andrea Doria shipwreck. Picture Jerry working alone welding salvaged metal pieces, convinced he'd strike it rich. He spent months perfecting his creation, the Questor 1. Launch day finally came, at Coney Island Creek. The crane lifted it up and promptly dropped it sideways into a mudbank. Game over. Jerry's submarine never even got properly wet. He tried everything. Refilling ballast tanks, different angles, waiting for high tide. Nothing worked. The Questor 1 has been there since 1967. A rusted reminder that sometimes ambition meets reality spectacularly. Hawaii's ship dumping ground. Shipwreck Beach on Lanai Island sounds romantic until you learn the dark truth. This 6-mile Hawaiian stretch hosts 12 different vessels, but not all ended up here accidentally. Back in the 19th century, this beach became a dumping ground for cheap ship owners who didn't want to pay proper scrapping costs. Instead of doing the right thing, they'd run unwanted vessels aground and walk away. The trail starts with Yog 42, a U.S. Navy fuel barge, and ends with Yog 21, a former Navy oiler. These concrete beasts survive decades because concrete doesn't rot, it just slowly crumbles into the sea. What's fascinating and depressing is how we've turned environmental negligence into a tourist destination. People travel worldwide to photograph these romantic shipwrecks, not realizing they're looking at maritime illegal dumping. The cruise ship that almost made it. The MS World Discoverer wasn't just any cruise ship. She was a globe-trotting legend that spent 26 years showing passengers Earth's most remote corners. Built in Germany in 1974, this ship lived up to her name. For over 2 decades, she carried adventurous travelers to Antarctica, the Arctic, remote Pacific Islands. She was the ultimate luxury adventure vehicle. In April 2000, while navigating near the Solomon Islands, the World Discoverer hit an uncharted reef. Water poured in catastrophically, but Captain Oliver Cruise became a hero by staying aboard and carefully piloting the sinking vessel to Roderick Bay, allowing all valuables to be safely removed. The World Discoverer has sat in that bay for over 20 years, slowly being reclaimed by nature. There's something poetic about this former world explorer now permanently anchored in one remote location. The Caribbean Ghost Island. Klein Curacao is a creepy abandoned Caribbean island completely devoid of life except for 2 shipwrecks keeping an empty lighthouse company. The Maria Bianca Guidesman was once a proud oil tanker that ran aground in the 1960s with such force it sheared clean in two. Salvaging became impossible, so the battered shell has been falling apart in the sun for almost 60 years. The second vessel is harder to identify, but it might tell a shameful story. The Dutch West India Company's slave trade route passed through here, and the island was used to quarantine slaves in a shabby hospital whose ruins still exist. This second ship might have been a slave vessel, which would explain why nobody's ever admitted to leaving it there. Ireland's concrete survivor. The SS Crete Boom has been playing hide-and-seek in Ireland's River Moy for over 80 years. This concrete ship represents one of maritime history's strangest chapters. Built in 1917 during World War I when steel was too precious for civilian ships, the Crete Boom hauled iron ore and coal around Europe. By 1937, she was worn out and scheduled to be scuttled as a river barrier. But on her final journey, she struck rocks and started sinking. The only option was towing her to the river's middle temporarily until a better solution emerged. That was 85 years ago. She's still there. The Crete Boom has become such a permanent fixture that she's practically an Irish landmark. Generations of locals grew up with this concrete ship as daily scenery. The ferry that became art. The TSS Duke of Lancaster was supposed to become Wales' floating entertainment complex. Instead, she became one of Europe's most unique art galleries. This 1956-built ferry served between Wales and Ireland for over 2 decades. When that route ended, a Welsh company bought her, with dreams of creating the Fun Ship, a floating amusement park. Legal battles dragged on for years with local authorities fighting every plan. The ship sat getting rustier while lawyers argued about permits. Then in 2012, someone brilliantly invited Europe's best graffiti artists to transform her into a floating art gallery. For months, internationally renowned street artists covered every inch with incredible murals. But here's the weird twist. In 2017, someone painted the entire ship jet black overnight. No explanation. The artwork disappeared under black paint, and nobody knows why. The memorial Fighting Time. The USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor is more than an abandoned ship. She's a powerful symbol. But this iconic memorial is literally falling apart. The Arizona has been underwater since December 7, 1941. When Japanese bombers turned her into a tomb for 1,177 sailors. The memorial allows 2 million annual visitors to pay respects without disturbing the wreck, but the ocean is claiming what's left. In 2018, engineers discovered a massive hull crack. They repaired it, but it cracked again within months. The memorial closed for a year while experts figured out preservation solutions. The cruel irony is that what makes the Arizona powerful, still bleeding oil after 80+ years, is also destroying her. Every day, more ship corrodes away. Within our lifetime, there might not be enough Arizona left to support the memorial. Australia's underwater success story. Not all abandoned ships are tragedies. Off Australia's Moreton Island, 15 ships were deliberately sunk, creating the Tangalooma wrecks. Starting in 1963, Queensland's government spent 20 years positioning these vessels to create protected anchorage. They accidentally created something more valuable, one of the world's most successful artificial reef systems. Today, these deliberately abandoned ships host over 100 marine species. Dolphins regularly visit, seemingly curious about these man-made additions. The Tangalooma wrecks prove sometimes the best thing we can do with old ships is give them back to the ocean. New York's ship graveyard. Staten Island's tugboat graveyard looks like the apocalypse happened. This isn't one abandoned ship, it's an entire fleet slowly dissolving. This used to be a legitimate ship-breaking operation where hundreds of New York port ships came for proper dismantling, but the company just stopped. They didn't clean up or finish jobs, they abandoned everything and walked away. More than 24 ships in various decay states remain, tugboats to dredgers, all moored together in a sinking mass of rust. Some deteriorated so much only rotting timber frames remain. This environmental disaster has sat there since 1990. The war museum that floated away. The USS Inaugural in St. Louis had a distinguished World War II service record as a minesweeper that sailed to Okinawa. After decommissioning, she became a floating war museum on the Mississippi River. But the Great Flood of 1993 tore her from moorings and carried her downstream. She ended up sunken sideways half a mile away. For 20 years, accessing her was impossible. An unusually dry 2012 spell lowered river levels, exposing the Inaugural's shell. What remained wasn't pretty, obviously, beyond future use except as a graffiti canvas. She was eventually sold for scrap, a sad end for such distinguished service. These 12 abandoned ships represent more than maritime history. They're monuments to human ambition, environmental responsibility, and how our past refuses to stay buried. From Jerry's yellow submarine dreams to the Arizona's fading memorial, each vessel tells us something about who we are and what we leave behind. If these stories fascinated you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible forgotten history tales. Which abandoned ship shocked you most? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time for more amazing mysteries our world has left behind.